Hey guys, I'm Ben.
And I'm Tommy.
And I'm Rainer.
And we have Rainer talking board games with us.
This is the most famous person in board gaming that I know.
It's our claim to fame, pretty much.
Basically. Rainer, what are you known for?
I don't know that I am known for much.
What do I know you for?
That's a better way to phrase it.
You know me, you have been volunteering at our booth at Tzolk'in, Strawberry Studio, and you have also participated in playtesting for the expansion for Exodus Proxima Centauri, Event Horizon. You're in the rulebook.
Your name's in the rulebook?
It is in the rulebook, yes. Me and McKenna.
Shoot.
That's right.
McKenna
you're
and
not
myself.
in it, though, so.
But I wasn't part of this thing at the time, so... It was because I wasn't invited. They didn't know me.
Well, today we're going to be focusing on a game not coming from Rainer. By the way, if you did not know, he co-designed, mostly led the design, for what I understand, for Exodus Proxima Centauri Event Horizon.
The largest expansion ever.
Large box.
No, I think Mythic Battle says it beat.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Second largest.
Second largest. But today we are talking about a game coming from NSKN. And you are NSKN's representative today.
That is correct.
And most of the time.
Yes.
Outside of today.
At U.S. conventions and such, yes.
Yes. So we are talking about, if you can't see this, it's Teotihuacan.
Rainer, what is the correct pronunciation?
It is Teotihuacan, which
I've
is
never seen that word again.
Which is an old city just outside of Mexico City. That was it's known as one of the most important Mesoamerican cities that we actually know very little about. When the Aztecs took it over, it was already in ruins.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So it's old.
It is old.
Is
this game old?
This game is not old at all. In fact, it is so new that this is just a prototype.
When is this expected to be?
It will be released on the U.S. market in October, and then about 2 or 3 weeks later at Essen in Germany will be the.
So it's
European.
actually hitting the U.S. market before Essen.
Yes, it is.
Who do I say thank you to for that? Because I am so tired of getting all these Essen releases 4 months
years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No, and that was a plan.
By the way, have you heard Seven Wonders is coming to the U.S.?
Is it really?
Distribution,
yes.
yeah.
I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, it only took 8 years.
That's right. No, and that was a decision that we made. We wanted to have we have 2 releases at Essen, Teotihuacan as well as Dice Settlers. They're both coming out.
Kickstarter.
Yes, and they're both coming out before Essen in the US.
Really.
To clarify, just finished Kickstarter.
Yes.
Quite
Yes.
successful, if I.
It was,
recall.
yes. It was our most successful to date. So.
Well,
Excellent.
Congrats.
Excellent.
But the difference here is this is not going to Kickstarter. This
Correct. This is going
straight
straight to
Retail.
retail.
And this is more or less a follow-up to Tzolk'in?
It's definitely it's more of a spiritual successor.
Okay.
So you will recognize a lot of the same design elements and mechanisms by that designer.
So this is Daniel Tassini. He's done things like Council of Four, Marco Polo, and obviously Tzolk'in.
He's got some good games.
He does.
For sure.
Yeah.
I have
very
played
impressive pedigree.
Tzolk'in, Marco Polo, and I'm dying to play
Yes,
Council of
I
Four.
hear it every time we get together. I'm well aware. I think they're well aware of your anticipation for the new Council 4 release.
So, has he taken any elements from Tzolk'in and kind of re-implemented them?
Along those lines, why don't you kind of explain how the game's played?
Sure.
Yeah.
Then we can go
tie
over
into
that.
those. Yeah.
Okay. So the game is you are basically in the part of the people that were building the city of Teotihuacan. It is a worker placement game of sorts. You have dice, but you don't roll the dice. The dice are workers, and they gain experience as they move from location to location.
I think those are Tommy's favorite kind of dice, the dice you don't roll.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. And then as they move to a location and you activate the action, you take that action on that space, then they will gain experience, which means that the more experienced they are and the more dice that you use to activate a specific location, the more you will get out of that. So there's a lot of planning. You will have 3, or you can unlock a 4th die that you move around as workers, and they can only go in a single direction. So you can never backtrack. So sometimes you have to plan based on the board layout, because there are 8 locations around the central board, and they're all randomly placed every game. So there's a lot of variety in the order that they come up. Some of the places you can go to collect resources. There's stone, there's gold, and wood.
There's most worker placement games.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's also cocoa. You do need to, just like in Tzolk'in, you do need to feed your workers.
But they live off cocoa.
But they live off of
I
cocoa.
would rather live off of cacao than corn.
Yeah.
To be honest, that would be my food of preference if I was starving.
Yeah, biggest design flaw in Tzolk'in is the fact that they use corn instead of cocoa.
Yeah.
No.
And then otherwise, that there are similar things. That there are 3 temples that you can progress on.
Right.
And that will unlock resources or victory points, and also just give you more cocoa for your workers. And also there are special discovery tiles that you can unlock, both from progressing on the temples and also depending on the actions that you take on the board. There's also the focal point of the game is building the pyramid of the sun, which is the largest
really cool,
pyramid in Teotihuacan. And you will use resources to build up the pyramid. The higher of a level that you build, the more points you will earn. You can add decorations to it and so forth. And there are a few things with matching symbols and colors that will also allow you to progress on the temples.
Do I sense Strawberry Studios crossover here?
No.
If you would like to have a very themed game night, you could play Pyramid of the Sun.
You could
slowly move your way into
slowly. That's a pretty abrupt
quantum leap your way into.
Yes, one that you can play with non-gamer friends and children, and one that you can play
after
with
they go home.
After they go home at 7:30, it's like, well, it's pretty late for us. We're gonna go home.
Yeah. No, those are very different.
So
one is in a small box, and the other one is
massive.
So this is not compatible with Pyramid of the Sun. This is not a standalone expansion. For
That's what Tommy wants to do here.
so we've played the prototype, and looks great. Obviously, it's a prototype.
right.
And you said that the pieces for the pyramid were going to be much thicker.
Yes.
Not just thicker.
The plan is to make them out of wood,
That
so
is
that there will be
amazing.
a physical, just like in Tzolk'in.
Just
you
like
have
how
the
it was built out of
gears.
wood in here.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You have to provide the stone yourself.
Oh, okay.
No, but just as serving as the focal point, because that's one of the main sources of points throughout the game. It's one of the main aspects of the. In fact, there are several of the locations that you go and the actions that you take that focus on building that pyramid. So we want that to be in the final production version.
That's going to be
awesome.
very neat.
Yeah,
I think it's going to give this game a table presence. It already has one with all of the moving boards and whatnot that you lie on it, but that focal point, like you said, is really gonna.
Well, it reminds me of the Super Meeple version of Tikal, where the base game, the regular game, comes with little tiny chits that you're stacking on top, and by the end you've got a huge tower. But in the Super Meeple version, it's like you've got like towers that are like varying sizes, and it looks really cool. So that is exciting for me. I'm excited to see that. Going back to my question originally, what has Daniel taken from Tzolk'in that he's re-implemented, or has he done any?
I think if you've played Tzolk'in, you'll definitely recognize a lot of those design elements. I mean, there's the collection of resources, although here it works completely differently. In Tzolk'in, you have the gears that you have to kind of plan, where you place your worker and you wait for it to get to the spot where you want to activate it. Here, it's more so planning and saying, well, I'm going to move my worker over to this location and get something, and then later moving a second one so that the two of them provide me a greater benefit.
It allows that same depth of planning.
Right.
I felt, but like you said, in a very different way.
Well, it still has that, take my workers off aspect with those. Around the board, there are a few spots where your dice will get locked into place, and you can't move it until everything else is locked into place.
Or until someone bumps you off.
Until someone bumps you off. So you still have that same planning, which is very similar to Tzolk'in in that regard.
Yep.
Another thing that really impressed me with this, and I don't know if this was his decision or maybe guidance from SKN, but the amount of variability in the setup of this game is just mind-blowing. You have the 8 boards. Not just that, you have stacks of tiles that go around everywhere that are being put out randomly. You're receiving random starting stuff like in the expansion, I think, for Tzolk'in. But it's just like, you will never play the same game
I'm glad
twice.
that was brought in initially instead of deciding to do it.
And it's and at the same time, even though it's the gameplay itself is only random in setup. After that point,
it's 100% open information.
Yeah.
If someone's got a special ability or tile or whatever, they can that they have that and that they could potentially use it in any point.
Even just to the fact that you have those stacks that you can get once you unlock the certain spots on the temple, but you can go through and choose one. It's not just pick the top one and then the next one becomes. You get to pick it up. You're there first. You have 5 choices to choose from.
Right.
Which is really cool. You don't see very often in games like this.
Yeah, and it also allows you to develop a strategy and say, well, I'm going to pursue this track first. Maybe you want to build the houses and advance on the Avenue of the Dead to get one of those tiles that will allow you to do something else better later. And including the technology tiles. I mean, that will make it easier for you to when you take certain actions, you get stronger actions earlier or get more. I also, one thing that I also like is that after you have unlocked a certain technology, if someone else researches that second technology, you get a benefit.
Is that not similar to Tzolk'in? Is there not one of those like, oh, I already took that, I get points now for it? Is that not? I could be thinking of something completely different.
I think you're thinking of something different.
I do that a lot.
We play a lot of games, folks. Don't blame us.
So with the variability, is there any plan for any kind of expansion or extra tiles, or at this point is it really just let's get this out and see where it goes?
Right now, there's certainly possibilities to expand it in the future. But right now there's enough variability. You have the 8 locations, which all 8 locations are going to be in every game. It's just where they are
how they show
different.
up, right.
Which plays a huge
because it could be that you collect the stone on the tile on the board immediately before you use it to build a pyramid, or it could be that these two are switched. So now you have to collect the stone and then you have to move around the board and save it up. But those 8, but then you have all the objective tiles, which you can get, and those are, that's a fixed amount. You just don't know when they're coming up because some may be available from the start and some may not show up till later in the game. You have the technologies, and then you also have the ones that are on that first board where you can lock in and collect. You can get a certain benefit. And right now, we don't want to. There's so much variability in that's
it's not necessary.
Right. Of course, we'll see.
Anything is possible, especially if it sells. Which, along those lines,
yes,
you got wood components.
It sounds
You've
like
got
this is
lots of variability, tiles, boards.
Pricey.
Yeah, are we able to ask you the MSRP?
You are. It is going to be $50 MSRP.
What?
Yep.
That's incredible. Sold. Just because it's cheaper than other games. Sold.
Yep. Well, and that's one of the things too that is something that we worked hard to get the game, that it's the presentation is quality components, quality in artwork and everything, so that it both looks good and you feel good about the components as you're using them, but also keeping it at a good price.
Well, I'm excited. I can't speak for anyone else, but
I am definitely excited for this to come out. I anticipate buying it, but we'll see what happens when we get to that point.
We can arrange that. Rainer's taking pre-orders.
Yeah.
Are you like, what's that called when you go to a concert and you scalping? Are you scalping copies? This one's $65. I only got 4 left. This one's $75.
Not quite.
Not quite. Okay.
But anyway, we'd like to thank Rainer for joining us today. Hopefully you learned something new about this game. Keep your eyes open as we approach Essen and look for that release. And we'll try and keep you informed as well as we hear more.
Obviously not final, but keep an eye out for that name.
Even if you can't pronounce it, look for it.
Look for the game with the T. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks.